Hello, welcome to Rivendell, a music and society channel. My name's Nathan. This video picks up where a previous video on parenting left off and covers my exposure and continued introduction to the punk rock community and my exposure to political and social thought. I've organized this video into 4 sections, and the first one is my time in Billings, Montana, after I got out of Raymond Hall and became a ward of the court. I remember right before I moved to Billings, I took a last trip up to the Seattle Center. I went to the Space Needle and the Pike's Place Market, and that's the first time I got my hands on a Circle Jerks cassette tape. So let's jump right into it with Paid Vacation.
Get your money out, place your bets. It's Afghanistan. Bayonet, check grenades. Got enough bullets, got enough rounds to fight on this place. With the infantry and the cavalry. Parachutes fill the skies as bodies burn and people die. It's not Vietnam. It's another oil company scam.
So I went to family court before I moved to Billings as well, and my mom wanted to have the reason for us becoming wards of the court because we were out of control kids, and so we had a state appointed attorney and we subpoenaed the entire neighborhood, literally like 25 or 30 people, our friends, parents of friends, because they knew the situation in our house better than anyone. They had seen it for the last year or two, and they were on our side witnessing on our behalf. I remember the judge called for a little lunch break at the time, and so everybody was dismissed to go to lunch, and in that time my mom decided to fold, and so we were arguing that the reason that we were becoming wards of the court is because she was a neglectful mother. On the record, it goes that that's the reason why we became ward of the court.
The late 70s, early 80s meant monumental changes for Billings.
When I first got to Billings, it was towards the end of the semester there, right at the beginning of January 1988. And so the schools there still had about a month to go before the second semester picked up. And there was no way I was going to get credit at high school. So I talked to my foster family and I was like, why should I go to school if I'm not going to get credit for it? And they reluctantly agreed, but with the condition that I would go, my foster mother at the time was attending Eastern Montana College. And so the condition was I had to go to her classes once in a while and spend time at the library at the college, and I had to write my own essays and papers, but I got to pick the topics. So I was interested in these punk rock ideas, but didn't know much about them. So the first paper I wrote was on the political philosophy of anarchy. And that was an interesting one, and I spent a lot of time writing it. I mean, I was 14, and I'd never really written a paper like that before, so I don't have a copy of it. I don't know if it was good. And the second paper I wrote before the second semester picked up and I actually started attending high school again was on Taoism. I then enrolled in Billings Senior High. It was a big high school, but there was only a handful of punk rockers. And so one of them was in my 6th period science class, and we started talking about the Accused and different bands. There was a magazine that was distributed all around the country called Maximum Rock and Roll at the time. So kids all around the country were being exposed to punk rock. It happened to be that this kid I met in my science class played bass in a band called Fight for Life, and it was a punk rock band. And after school, they would go over to the drummer's grandma's house and rehearse in the basement. That I would get on stage for 2 songs and just do backup vocal. I remember soon after I got to Billings, I dyed my hair black. Interestingly, last year I found out that some guy had made a music documentary about the punk rock scene in Montana. And the band that I was an honorary member of was included in it. It was called Fight for Life. One of the interesting things about the other kids that were in that band, though, is that most of them came from pretty well-to-do homes. Like the kids I was hanging out in Tacoma were definitely more working class, and these, I think one of their parents was a city planner, another one was like pretty high up in Butteries, which was like a chain of grocery stores. It was a little bit of a different scene in Billings. I didn't have very many tapes or records at the time, but I did have Dead Kennedys vinyl album called Bedtime for Democracy. And one of the times I was hanging out with my friends just right before I left and went back to Tacoma, we were hanging out on the ladders or rims. There's like these cliffs near downtown Billings, and they're really high up and they're just jagged cliffs. And I won't get into it, but basically like there was this jockish kind of guy who tried to beat me up, and so I kind of faked that I was getting hurt. And so on that note, I'm going to share a song off the Dead Kennedys' Bedtime for Democracy album called Macho Insecurity. I remember when school finally got out in June, I just couldn't wait to get back to Tacoma and start the summer of 1988 with my friends back in my hometown.